Welcome to Ramu, the Ramarao Mukundan talk show, where we celebrate the extraordinary legacies of remarkable individuals. In this series, we spotlight diverse personalities, many now in their silver years, whose lives continue to inspire through innovation, artistry, and resilience. Today's guests are the brilliant Mr. Raj&Radahikan and his equally inspiring partner, Mrs. Radhika-1. Together, they embody a vibrant spectrum of talent, engineering, entrepreneurship, and music. Please join me in welcoming the versatile innovator, engineer, and musician, Mr. Raj&Radahikan, and his partner in life and melody, Mrs. Radhika-1. Raj&Radahikan, it's an honor to have you both here. You were born into a household rich in creativity. Your father, with his mechanical ingenuity, and your mother, with her disciplined grace and classical music expertise. Could you share how that environment shaped your early years and sparked your drive to create?
Yeah, this is an amazing story because I was blessed, I would say, to be born to parents who had such complementary and diverse skills, interests, and father was an engineer, mechanical engineer, and graduated from the local engineering college way back in 1922 or 23. And subsequently he went abroad to Germany for a postgraduate qualification. Ultimately ended up working there for 2 years in the German railways. This is during Hitler's time. So obviously he was exposed to a lot of German technology. You can imagine pre-World War, of course, because the entire story continues even to this day. German innovation and skills in particular, very good in skilling, and the emphasis on skilling right from childhood as part of the education system is something amazing. So having observed that, and my father, right, even before all this, even when he was in his village, the story goes that when the bicycle started becoming available, he went and bought a bicycle and then ripped it apart within a day. And everybody started calling him Hucha, mad fellow. And that was his desire for knowledge. He wanted to rip out things, understand, and then reassemble. And was interested in photography, all kinds of those skills. Whereas my mother was brought up in a very typical Iyengar family, full of arts, music in particular. And she started performing in not only Carnatic classical, but she learnt Hindustani music. She was a good painter. Bark painting she had made, which we had in our house.
Leather work.
Leather work. Can you imagine? What is it called? Embossed leather. Right. Embroidery, machine embroidery. And my father, on the other hand, used to rip out cars, engines, put it out of the car, and not only his own car, but even friends' cars, to rip out the engine, do a valve grinding, piston ring change. And I used to observe. That's the environment in which I grew up. So automatically I got interested. Automatically it went into my blood. And I was doing whatever he would allow me. As a 6-year or 5-year-old, he was one day grinding the valves. I don't know if you're aware of it. Valves in the engine of a car. And you need to grind it because it wears off. So he said, I was watching him, I said, you also do it. Gave me that grinding, it comes as a suction cup. And I started doing it at the age of 5 or 6. This is the environment. So, you automatically start innovating and want to do a lot of these kind of engineering skills. When my mother was doing embroidery, I said, I want to do it. She said, come and sit. I don't know, you must be having it somewhere. We'll take it out and show you. Machine embroidery at the age of 6 or 7. Amazing environment, amazing guidance from the parents.
We also hear your siblings played a key role in nurturing your interests. from aeroplane models to sports and music. How did their influence help broaden your horizons?
I keep telling everyone that I learned as much from my siblings as my parents. Because ultimately they also grew up in the same kind of environment, and they also took to music, engineering hobbies, things like that. So painting and various other kind of, including sports, variety of sports. When we were in Delhi, we used to play one sport each day. So cricket on one day, football on one day, hockey on one day, and then volleyball. Ultimately, I took to all kinds of sports. So as I grew up, I picked up tennis, table tennis. In fact, my father encouraged, my mother also encouraged sports. So this was something fantastic. And ultimately, when we grew up in our boyhood, my father was posted to Hindustan shipyard in Visakhapatnam. And that's where he used to take us to the shipyard to look at the ship building industry. He was there. So my brother took to ship modeling. And we were all, because my father was very good at carpentry, right from a young age, we all used to have tools to play around with and create things. So we were all good carpenters. So my brother started making ship models, which you see there in that showcase. And the hulls are made of wood, scooped out using chisels. And so they are actually working floating models of ships, actual scale models. So as I observed him, I also used to, because my elder brother, whatever he did, he's the mentor for me, role model. So automatically I took to shipbuilding, and then I graduated to aero modeling when we went to move to Bangalore. And Bangalore, as those days, there were only three industries: telephone industries, HAL and BEL. And these aircraft used to be flying all the time, so I took to it. It fascinated me. So that's how, when I was in high school itself, I started making aero models.
Okay. Wonderful to hear that.
Absolutely. And of course, my sister was a very good singer. At the age of 7, she started performing concerts along with my mother. So music was there 24/7 in our house. So obviously I took to music also, both Carnatic and Hindustani, which my mother used to also perform.
What an inspiration.
It was.
After earning your engineering degree, you began your career at Hindustani Aeronautics Limited. How did HAL's dynamic environment shape your technical and managerial skills?
This is a very interesting thing, and I keep relating this to even young engineers whom I keep training or interacting with. See, you got to have, if you have hobbies and you develop interest in some domain, then you want to be in that domain. So as I said, I was making aeroplane models, graduating from paper models to cardboard and then to solid scale models, shaped exactly like a real aeroplane of various aircraft of the world, included Indian HF-24, Kiran, MiG-21, as well as Boeing 707. I have photographs of that which I can show you later. But then the fact that I was so crazy about aeronautics, aeronautics was only available in a few colleges in the country, IIT, Indian Institute of Science, and maybe one or two other colleges. So automatically I took to electrical engineering because I liked electrical engineering after PUC. And after I graduated, by then my interest in aerospace became so crazy that I wanted to be an aerospace designer. So after I finished engineering, my father wanted me to get into engineering services, civil services, and become maybe an IAS or IPS officer. That was his ambition for all of us siblings. But I said I wanted to be in aerospace. So when he saw me making so many detailed models and so on, he said, okay, let's go and meet Professor Dhawan. Satish Dhawan was the director of Indian Institute of Science. So I put all my models into a cardboard box, went with him, barged into Professor Satish Dhawan's office, and my father told him, this fellow is so crazy about aeroplanes, he wants to be an aerospace engineer, so we want to know how he can get into Institute of Science, so that he could take up a post-graduation in aerospace. And Professor Dhawan definitely appreciated my models, he was very keen to help, but he was very point blank, and he just asked me, are you among the first two ranks in the university, in your university? I said, I've been a first class student all along, but I've not been in the top two ranks. So he said, then you can forget about getting into Institute of Science, because he says Institute of Science allows only first two ranks of each university from the country to get in, whatever branch you want.
Okay.
So he says, next best for you would be to try to get into HAL, and HAL had just then launched the so-called Graduate Engineer Training Scheme.
Okay.
Ultimately, it was renamed as Management Trainee Scheme. So he said, try your luck, and if you get in there, you have everything to meet your ambitions. And so we came back home, then I searched through the papers, I found the advertisement for this scheme,
Yes.
applied, and as usual, there was an aptitude test, 3 levels of selection. The aptitude test, logical test, where I got through very well. But then the winning score was when I walked into the interview with my box of models. So everybody stared at me when I walked in. What is this cardboard box you're carrying? I said, I have aero models to show you. So I took them out and placed them, and these are models which I used to have with a very artistic stands also, which I used to make. Because as I said, we were all very good carpenters. And I put them there, they asked me a couple of questions, they said, yes, we see that you are highly motivated, you need to get into a chair. They gave me the position. We were a batch of 32 management trainees, selected from across the country. From Punjab, from Andhra, from Chennai,
But
different states.
about the training.
I'm coming to that. So, I was blessed because this training scheme was ultimately aimed at filling the gaps of senior management personnel who are about to retire. Many of the people in the middle and top management in the organization had joined during the World War II as either ITI or diploma. There were very few engineers.
Right.
So they said they saw the vacuum developing among the management, different strata of the management, and this scheme was created to fill up and ultimately grow and fill up right up to management, general manager and managing director. So the entire 18-month training was devised to empower us with skills in all the departments of the organization. Personal department, recruitment, training, machine shop, sheet metal, everything including design. And after which they tested out our aptitude and put each one to different departments, where a route map for their growth was already in place. But the absolute learning for me was that I was exposed to such a wide area of management, engineering skills, as well as we had a 3-month residential management training, where 24 hours we were trained by professors as well as senior managers and general managers of the organization. So everything we were trained. The only area that we were not trained was sales and marketing, which did not exist in HAL. They had a customer, whatever they produced went to the Indian Air Force. So this again was an absolute godsend training for me, and I enjoyed it more so, like I said, because I was so thoroughly deeply interested in aerospace. I went beyond learning what was expected of us. And in design, even though I was in the electrical avionics crew, I learned about armaments, I learned about guns, cannons which are fitted on the aircraft, then rocket launchers, everything I assimilated. It was an amazing for me for my own satisfaction, but that helped perform me later in my life also.
What an experience.
Absolutely.
Could you tell us what lessons stayed with you? And are there any regrets of having worked in a public sector undertaking?
Well, of course, anybody who works in a public sector, sometime or the other, feels a little demotivated and let's say a little regretful that they haven't got the opportunity. It's fine for people who just want to sail along and get their time scale promotions and retire. In fact, even my father said, oh, you're in a very secure public sector job. But I wasn't, because with the kind of innovative mind that I had, I wanted opportunities and I want to leverage opportunities for using my innovating skills and develop. In fact, I was keen on developing indigenous equipment, which I was not permitted to. So over a period of time, it led to some frustration, and therefore I quit a domain that I was extremely fond of. Much against my wish, but that's where she came in and said, if you are not, I used to come back home sometimes in a bad mood and take out my shoes and throw it here and there. She said, if you are not happy, just kick off your job. That's the exact word she used.
And I said that actually when I was pregnant with our firstborn.
You know, that I found it amazing. In fact, without that, I don't think I would have had the guts to quit a public sector job. And when she said that, I jumped at it and said, okay, shall I quit? She said, yes, sure. And within 2 months, I submitted my resignation, came out.
Wow. And we also hear that during your time at HAL, you pursued a postgraduate degree at IIT, and as you just said, you also got married. Narayan, how did you balance academic rigor with romance and innovation? Radhika, we would love to hear your perspective on those formative years.
So that was, when we actually got engaged. Both of us were, neck deep in our studies. I had to submit my thesis within the next 10 months.
For her MSc?
For my MSc, my master's thesis. This was a program by Bombay University where you can do your master's completely by research, without any papers or, exams or theory. So I was working at the Cancer Research Institute, endocrinology, and and by the time we got married, I had just submitted my thesis. So after marriage, I was very relaxed, I said, I'm free, and I felt good after the grind.
No, but I want to intervene here. See, I had just got into a post-graduation. I was still in the first semester.
He was struggling.
I was in the first semester, and with a gap of 4 years between my graduation, basic engineering graduation, and getting into a post-graduation, 4 years, it was hell because I was out of touch with studies and assignments and this and that. So I wasn't really interested in getting married at that time. She was deep into her thesis. So both of us didn't want to get married. Somehow the meeting happened and we liked each other because again, it's such a strange coincidence that she has almost an entirely identical upbringing. Like I was born and brought up for the first 8 years in Delhi and then moved to Visakhapatnam, then to Chennai, Bangalore, etc. Her father being in the railways, she also was moving around. So partly educated in Delhi, partly educated in Hyderabad.
A very cosmopolitan kind of a background and interests also in terms of even music, very eclectic. So we liked pop music,
correct,
classical, Western classical, North Indian classical, South Indian classical, you name it. And we found it very much to our surprise that all of these really gelled.
I can tell you, I was amazed when I went into her house when we first met. And as part of just talking to each other, she said, come, I'll show you all the kinds of records we have.
LP records in those days.
And I was amazed. I never thought I would find a life partner who was performing Carnatic music on the veena and getting interested in Tchaikovsky and Beethoven and what are the other...
and Elvis Presley.
Elvis Presley, Beatles.
Oh, yeah, that too.
That's what I was also into. And she was identically having the same interest. So we literally fell into love.
But
it was an arranged marriage that converted into a love marriage.
No, for 10 months. So ultimately when we did get married, he was still neck deep in studies, but a little more stable by then. And I was free because I had submitted my thesis.
Right.
Yeah, the defense was a year later. But it was a new experience because as married officer was studying. He was given kind of accommodation called married officers accommodation.
Hostel.
No, first it was a hostel and then it was a little house.
No, even that was called MOH, Married Officers Hostel.
It was called a hostel, though
Yes.
it was a little house.
It's a 1 bedroom.
1 bedroom, tiny little house with a kitchen. We had rented furniture and
And
learning.
IIT was renting the furniture to us. Paid some 20 rupees, 30 rupees per month.
Something like that. Amazing environment, IIT Madras is one of the prettiest campuses in the country, and you have deer grazing outside your house. You have birds and nice for an extended honeymoon. And so learning all sorts of things, like stuff that I never knew how to do, like how to manage a home without a refrigerator. How do you keep things without spoiling? Learned all of that, learned how to manage everything, and then practicing my music at the same time, going to concerts, amazing music academy season, the complete season we actually experienced. It was
We got a season ticket and we used to go to academy almost every day.
huge, it was a blessing that we saw and heard all the big artists, Balachandran, Balasaraswati, M.S. Subbulakshmi, Lal Gurija, the bunch. It was beautiful, and of course when he
And
was
both of us were still broadcasting from the
sorry.
Madras Akashvani studios.
absorbing all of it.
And they would, if I had a broadcast, we were not performing as duets. I would have separate concerts, she would have separate
Because we
concerts.
were
So for
independently
my
broadcasting
concert, she would
before.
come with me, just to accompany. And for her concert, I would go with her. And then all the people, staff there, thought we were brother and sister.
Because how can this young guy be married? So they would ask, "Is your sister?"
My sister, inga ukkaru solungo. So,
Funny, but and we had a gala time, enjoyed all of it. While studying at the same time for him and while practicing my music at the same time, doing all of that. It was a very lovely
I can
experience.
imagine. Made for each other couple and seemed like a fairy tale.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes,
that time it was.
That is what amazes me even to this day. Every evening, every night, he says, "Is this real or is this a dream I'm going through?" And I'm worried sometimes. I even asked her, "Are you sure this is real?"
Awesome. Clearly, a collaborative partner makes all the difference. I think even in your spare time, your inventive spirit thrived, right? Tell us about your early creations, like the scooter side indicators and the cockpit stimulator.
Yes.
How were they received?
Oh, in fact, many of the things I've done were a little too early, ahead of times, they would say. So maybe some 5 to sometimes even 10 years, because these two scooter direction indicators, they were not mandatory. They didn't need to be there. So nobody really, none of the manufacturers provided, but I wanted it. I said it's a safety thing, and also it adds some glamour to my two-wheeler, Labretta scooter that I had. So I would go to the automobile shops, look for those indicators, buy it. Then they would ask me, "किसके लिए ले रहे हो?" So most of them are Sindhis rather. So I would say, "स्कूटर के लिए." "स्कूटर में? स्कूटर में कैसे लगाओगे?" I said, "मैं फ्लैशर बना रहा हूँ." "अच्छा, मुझे भी बना के दो, हम दुकान में रखेंगे." So, but the customers were not there. So I would make it, and I had developed my own electronic flasher. Then once I made it, I said, "Okay, can I sell it to this?" Because that was towards the end of my career at HAL. So I was looking for what else can I do, because I hadn't decided. When I submitted my resignation to HAL, I didn't have alternate job, and I had not even thought about it. She was the kind who said, "Hey, if you're not happy, just get out." So first thought that came to me was, since I have this, I made it and I was using it on my Labretta scooter, and subsequently on any scooter I bought or my two-wheeler, I would have these indicators. So I think she suggested, why not we offer this to Bajaj, Vespa and Ideal Java, which was closest in Mysore.
Kinetic.
Kinetica subsequently I went, but none of them were interested because kya zarurat hai? There is no need for this.
Too early.
And if you want to give it to me for 10 rupees. My cost price was 70 rupees using transistors and other things. I said no way. And when they would ask for samples, after 10 days or 2 weeks, if I went there to get, they would have dug out everything. It was all potted. But they wanted to reverse engineer. They wanted to find out what was inside.
He was smart enough to, encase it in arrowtypes. They can't see it.
They can't see, but it didn't sell. So because it was ahead of time. So this way, there were so many things I made, but it really didn't go into the market. Something else also we did. When you asked about gadgets, I was into watch repair, clock repair as a kid. My father used to do it. Even this clock, this is 70 years old. Right? To this day I overhaul. My father was overhauling it till he was 80 years old, 85 years old. After that, when he got a stroke, he told me, hey, from now on you maintain it. So I've been maintaining it. Once a year I strip it out, oil it, reassemble. So it's working. So the same way I took to watch repair. And my father had these eyeglasses, magnifiers, single, which I had it at home. Even now I have watch repair tools at home. Even now, last week I opened out one of my Swatch was to change the batteries. A lot of things we do at home. Everything we do at home. Ripping out TVs, ripping out things. Because the thing is, what I emphasize to young engineers, one is that you must have an interest in some domain, so that you enjoy your career. It's not just going to an office, earning a pay packet, but there is value for that enjoyment, pleasure that you get out of doing some activity. Second is, when you start repairing things, you learn a lot of things out of it. When you strip things out, sometimes some things break, but you will also learn how to fix it. What you have broken, you will learn to fix it. So it's not just the repair, but you also understand how things have been designed. Every time I open something, plastic design, how has it been designed? And I have incorporated that in the plastic cabinets that I designed. So it's a learning experience, and that's how you become a real engineer.
Absolutely, my goodness. One to the other, and then came your big leap into entrepreneurship.
Correct.
I think much like Bill Gates, starting from a humble garage.
Absolutely.
Take us through that chapter, Raj&Radahikan, especially your pioneering work in electronic musical instruments.
Yeah. So this started when I was in HAL. Again, I was very lucky to be posted into a lab, which was actually a hidden lab. Not too many people knew about it. It was on the terrace of the design department. Temporary shed-like thing, which was initially obviously created for some radio experiments, radio engineering experiments. And I was posted there. We were just 4 engineers who were there. And we were given tasks. We were reporting to 2 very progressive Air Force officers. Both were retired from the Air Force. We were reporting to them. And they wanted to do a lot of experiments, but didn't know how to do it, didn't have the expertise and the infrastructure. So looking at us youngsters, they put it into the lab, they equipped the lab with whatever infrastructure we wanted, and said, okay, now you do this for this. See if you can do this experiment and give me this appliance.
Was that where you did the cockpit simulator?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That is how it started. When we started demonstrating our capability to design electronic circuits and equipment and so on, they said, okay, then they started, after all, it was their own ambition to create some things for the Air Force and demonstrate their own capabilities, which they were not able to do in the Air Force. So they used us to say, okay, can we do this? Can we do that? So that's how this idea, they went into the Air Force and said, can we design a cockpit simulator for you? They jumped at that idea and said, yes, if you can do it, because instead of flying in the air and using that much of fuel and cost, they can get trained on the ground before they actually start flying.
So they gave
That's
you
what we
these
created.
ones.
And to create that, you won't really believe this, we started going into the scrapyard of HAL. Scrapyard had a lot of scrap from, I found an old mechanical, it is a treasure really. It was a mechanical computer used on the Liberator air bomber used in World War II, which was being overhauled in Bangalore, but afterwards scrapped. So all the thing was removed, and they can't dispose of all these kind of so-called military spares. So it was just lying there. We picked up all these spares and brought it to the lab and sort of used the gearing, the various things to build things and demonstrate that I created actually various aircraft instruments which would be driven by servo motors using circuits. So it simulates the aircraft rolling forward, airspeed would increase, then after some time the altitude will start increasing, which means if the aircraft had taken off. We created the actual flight of an aircraft on an instrument panel, real. So that's how we did it. I enjoyed this, and I was ultimately given the task of creating the entire cockpit noise, which includes the engine noise. As it starts growling, and then you would have seen it, heard it in your passenger aircraft. But this was for a Kiran trainer aircraft. So I sat in the cockpit, heard the sound, then tried to simulate it using electronic circuits. That's how I got into audio simulation. And so once I was in that, I said then when I was practicing music at home, my mother had to sit and play either the shruti petti or the tambura. I said, why can't I use electronic circuits to create the same sounds? That's how I got into it. So aircraft technology getting into consumer electronics, and that is what I believe is innovation and creativity. If you are exposed to a wide variety of technologies, equipment and hardware, software, etc. Now of course software, those days we didn't have software. It gives you, it moves your thought process into saying, okay, can I do it in a different way? Using present day technology. That's how the Shruti box happened. And with the Shruti box, when I started making those for myself, then I demonstrated in a music conference. These big vidwans were sitting there and looking at it, and they said, hey, I'm traveling to US next week. I would like to take this, because by then in the 70s, early 70s, terrorism had started. So they couldn't carry these tamburas and veenas and etc. in the aircraft. There were restrictions. So instead of carrying a real tambura, they said, I can carry your electronic shruti petti. That's how it started. TRS, Professor T.R. Subramaniam. He was the first to ask for this product and give it to him so that he could carry it to the US. Came back from the US and he said, "Rendu to shruti petti eduthu rendu vithutten. Make me 2 more." Okay, so that is how this entrepreneurship started. Before we both, being musicians, we thought there was an opportunity to create these products for ourselves, not as a commercial enterprise. Commercial enterprise, after I quit, I was actually a subcontractor for BHA, making some routine wound coils. Even there, I was innovative to develop a test jig which enabled me to supply zero rejection, thousands of electrical coils that I used to supply to them. So that goes back to what I said earlier, saying if you are exposed to different kinds of technology domains, your mind will be creative automatically to say, okay, this can be done in a different way, or a better way, or a more efficient way. And that is what triggered the musical instruments, and ultimately it grew because every musician wanted to use it.
So when he created the Shruti box, then he said, I want something for my talam. Because somebody, again,
basically for myself.
Yeah, I want it for myself. So he used both his hands for the flute. I use both my hands for the veena. Who's going to put the talam? Somebody else. So why not I do something? And there again, he used his knowledge in the HAL, where they learnt about, in those days, microprocessors were not.
No, it was not there.
ICs.
Only ICs, not digital ICs. Using that, I made what my mother called a thalometer. She coined the name. Thalometer. Thala.
Yeah.
So we were using that, and then again people started asking for it. Then someone says, yeah, the Shruti box is nice, but why don't you make a tambura? With that, string sound, one by one the strings plucking. So he made that. So when he made that, and he got a very rare opportunity at the Music Academy to demonstrate the Shruti box, which he had made earlier, and the thalometer. He said, I made
during the December music conference, morning sessions are lectures, demonstrations, presenting papers and so on.
Right.
They are called, what is it called? The morning sessions
Academic
are academic sessions, yes. Evenings, they have concerts. So academic sessions are special. And mostly papers presented, sometimes you have even foreigners. Sometimes our own Vidwans and research scholars on related to music. But I was wanting to demonstrate my gadgets.
Okay.
Say these are replacements for the traditional shruti pettiga and tambura and so on. There was a little reluctance on the part of the academy because they are extremely conservative. So initially 1 year they didn't give me the opportunity. Next year I again insisted and they gave me an opportunity. So when I got the opportunity, I said, having got the opportunity, I must make the tambura. Believe it or not, I was still in the chair, I think, right? 79.
79.
79. So I used to design and draw up chart of connections, etc. She used to sit and solder the connections on a printed circuit board.
See, I didn't know electronics at all, except school physics level. So he would give me the design. Etching I know, chemistry student, definitely. So I know how it works. So he would give it to me and you have to paint on the parts that you don't want etched out.
Copper. The copper sheet. That's what is
And the part that you need, you know, that part has to be painted on so that the copper remains. The rest of it.
So her chemistry background came in there.
So the washed off by acid, that's the process. And we couldn't do this for 1 and 2. There are people who do it professionally. They'll say, give me 100. What 100? We were just trying to make one. So I would do that, and then he would say you have to drill the holes here for the components.
She
The
learned to
hand drill, I learned to do it. And then afterwards he would say, he'd teach me how to solder. This is how you solder. You solder this and this and this, I'll do that. And then when he started using ICs, he would say, you solder pin 8 of this to 14 of this. 8 of 1 to 14 of 7.
I made a terrible of chance.
Made a whole, so I faithfully do that, not knowing head or tail of what it meant. 8 of 1 to 9 of 14, all right, done. 6 of 8 to 3 of 1, okay, done. Make sure that it's clean, it's good. But how it works, who knows?
No, that's how the first talometer I made was it's almost like a computer because those days computers weren't there. So these were called hardwired logic circuits. So logic chips were available. And again, I was exposed to this because at HAL, all technologies come into aerospace and defense before it comes into the commercial market. So because of my exposure there, I was familiar with these ICs. And then once it was in the commercial market, I went and asked for it and got those ICs, and I was able to devise these pretty complex machine. Completely on one PCB of this size, they had about 14-15 ICs. And she did the wiring for that. Evening I would come back from the factory and check it out and see if it was working. It would work.
But then he also had to make the casing for her. So he had to make a box with wood, carpentry.
I was making the carpentry box
You
because
had to.
carpenters in the industrial or what carpenters you have, they were good at making cots and sofas and other things, which is not delicate. Small things with small joints, neat joints, corner joints, with laminates and other things, they won't be able to do it. So I had to do it because I had the skill. Much better than a carpenter.
Even for the Shruti boxes, so he hasn't come to the part, so he had made this talometer and he had made the Shruti box and he was preparing to show it at the academy. And then he was making the tambura. And they didn't know that. The academy didn't know that.
It was not announced.
So he just brought it along. The official demo was of the Shruti box and the talometer, demonstrated all okay. Then he said, I have something else to show you. And he switched it on.
The actual tambura sound it gave. And there was a hushed silence, because nobody had ever heard or thought of an electronic tambura. And people, Vidwans, Balamurali Krishna, T.K. Govindra Rao, all the big names in Carnatic music, Lal Gudi, you name it, they were there. Bombay Sisters, RAJ&RADHIKA Lakshmi,
Yeah.
they were all there. And to prove, like, mainly for the thalameter, to show that it is can help a musician, I wanted to play. So I played my flute to show this is how I use this.
And he played a very complex, what they call a Nadai Pallavi. It's a very complex thing. And he played it with the help of the thalameter.
So, to not only show that I am a performing musician as good as you, so I know what you need, and I am making these instruments for you. The tambura, thalameter, shruti box. It did the works, because they were convinced that a person with this knowledge of music has brought out these products. Because before that, a lot of people were saying, so many people have tried it, it doesn't maintain shruti, it doesn't maintain this, it doesn't maintain that. So they gave up. But here I said, I have designed this and developed this for a musician, because I am using it for the last 1 year, 2 years. And after a hushed silence, everybody clapped. The audience, there were about 100 to 150 people, audience, who come normally to listen to various lectures and presentations. They were all completely taken aback and very happy. Then happened some of the thing after I finished my presentation. I think it was the chairman of the experts committee, who they normally do a review of what was presented. So he said, "Ella nanna pannirke, ana indha mari machine la namba vandu Carnatic sangeethithile ubhayogapadutha koodadu. Konjam appappo namba ilukka vendirukom, trying to justify ஓடணும் கொஞ்சம் இழுக்கும் அந்த மெஷினை வச்சுட்டு தாளம் வச்சுட்டு வாசிக்க முடியாது." I countered that. This is where my mother's blood is in me, where she is extremely bold. So after he finished, I said, நீங்க எப்படி சொல்றீங்களே, கச்சேரியில் நான் இழுத்து ஓடினா நீங்க சரியா நன்னா வாசிச்சேன்னு சொல்லுவாங்களா, ஓடித்து எழுத்து தேவைன்னு கிரிட்டிக்ஸ் சொல்லுவாங்க. Audience clapped. So I had the audience on my side. So these are all, very, very funny experiences I've encountered, because after that, immediately after that, you won't believe it, Balamurali Krishna came backstage to meet me, and he said, "I want you to come home, I want to see this product, and I want you to start using it." Unbelievable. And he drove me himself in his Fiat car all the way to his house immediately. He didn't even allow me to spend time and meet others. So I went to his house. He asked me to play it. Then he said, "It is very nice. When can you make one and give me?" I thought he was joking. I didn't believe him.
Because he's such a big artist, maybe he's just being polite, these things. Okay, and he came back home.
I came back home, and after coming back to Bangalore, I was trying to neat and fresh and going about my business and engaging in that coil winding business for BHA, which was giving me 10 paise earning. So after a week, I get a call. Fortunately, I had a phone by then at home, because those days landlines were difficult to get. And I got a phone call from Balamurali Krishna. "Ennachu tambura kudukile." That is when I realized he was serious. And then I frantically, with hammer and saw and all that, started making the cabinet. She started etching the PCBs. We assembled, made one tambura and gave it to him. And 1 week later, I see a press review of his concert in Chennai or somewhere, and a critic criticizing Balamurali Krishna. What does he think? He is singing without a tambura. Nobody knew that there was an electronic tambura, I see.
It looked like a cassette player or something.
He is singing with a cassette player next to him. That was the. Then again, Balamurali Krishna calls me and says, "What are you doing? I am using a product, you are not publicizing it." He was telling me, "You have to do sales and marketing on this." Right? So, I am trying to say that we were such raw entrepreneurs, we didn't know
anything.
And we never thought this was going to be business for us. We thought, 100 musicians are there. After that, once they buy 100,
Finished.
market will be closed. Where is the question of mass production? We didn't know that it could.
Possible.
We never thought
We
of it.
make 2,000 tamburas in a month today. 2,000 tamburas, can you believe it?
I don't.
That's how
We never
the
thought
kind of revolution we created. And Balamurali Krishna started using it for all his concerts. And once he started using, other people like even Narayan saying, Nannarka, our use meant to carry Nannarka, sir, if I tell him, Anako one Panipun. RAJ&RADHIKA, Bombay sisters, one by one they started using it. This is how we created a revolution. And she had every hand in every one of these.
This really calls for an ovation. What an adventurous, creative couple. I say. Amazing it is, huh?
And once we did this, it automatically led again my exposure to Hindustani music in Delhi. When my mother used to perform, and I used to see a tabla artist coming home to perform the tabla for her. I never understood at that time why he was coming, but the fact is that Hindustani musicians don't mark the talas on their hand.
Correct.
It's all embedded into the tabla. It's called the theka. So each tal has a specific theka, a pattern which you recognize by listening to the tabla strokes. So you can decipher whether it's the first matra or second count or third count, the entire cycle. Sam and Khali. So then I realized that these people have a handicap. So I said, can I make an electronic tabla? So from an electronic tambura, I graduated to an electronic tabla, which is far more complex because you have to create a sound of not just a tabla but different strokes of a tabla. And then create it in a sequence at different tempos, different times, different pitch, which definitely necessitated a microcomputer. And I had not studied or used a microcomputer.
Okay.
Even in HL, microcomputers were not there till the time I quit in 79. So this was around 87.
Yes.
So I said I have to train myself on using a microcomputer, programming it. You have to code it, software. Those days computers were not there. So everything had to be through a keypad in machine language.
A kind of a device, you know.
Machine language is numbers only. A2, A4, B6, C7, these are all codes, which are called opcodes. And these had to be programmed into a kit and all experiments. So it was a very tedious, but then I managed to.
He was used to sit and learn every day.
I used to learn.
So after coming back from his little garage to a house where the little kids were playing and everything, after dinner he would be sitting in the bedroom doing this and making that. After he would make every entry, key press, it would make a small pip noise, pip, pip, and we could hear that in the bedroom. So the children would say, shh, Appa is doing pip pip, don't trouble him.
So that's how I learned and then developed a tabla. Towards the end of this, this is again a very strange story. Looking at the resistance to the introduction of electronic tamburas, etc. in the south, in fact even in the north, I wasn't sure if the North Indian musicians, even though they had this handicap of being at the mercy of a tabla artist for their riyaz, practice at home, they were all at the mercy. So I said, I must check out if they will use it. So since my sister was in Bombay and she was a well-established singer in Bombay, she was performing in Akashvani. So I asked her whether I can talk to some people. She took me to Akashvani. There was one Pandit Ramesh Nadkarni, very well-established vocalist, senior musician. He was a producer in the Akashvani. That is employee of Akashvani. So I went and met him. I told him, I'm trying to work on an electronic tabla. He was sitting like this. He just jumped out of his seat. What? You think you can do it? This is exactly the words he said. You think you can make? I want you to do it because I want to teach this tabla artist a lesson. This is what he said. Because they were, even if a tabla artist came to their house, at maximum they would play for 1 hour. A musician needs to practice for 10 hours, 12 hours a day.
That level, And they would charge. And they would say, come, nahi aaj main free nahi hu, mera program hai. No, put up their price. Generally give them a hard time.
So, when I looked at his reaction, I told him, yes, I can do it. I'm working on it. Then I came back home, started working on this project at feverish pitch, and every week he would send me a list, what is the progress on the electronic tabla? He was so keen on it.
Wonderful.
So, this is these are my experiences. When you create something innovative, there is half of the population which is interested, the other half saying, no, this should not be done.
Yes.
And you have to overcome it by whatever means possible to make it successful and get it accepted. And that is where, both of us were managing to do it. Of course, my sister was involved, my mother also was involved. It was an extremely interesting and rewarding experience, not from the point of view of business, but the opportunity of meeting people like Ravi Shankar, Khan,
Vilayat Khan.
Bombay Sister, all the great musicians. Phenomenal.
You've really played a pivotal role in modernizing classical instruments. And I think what you just mentioned, Pandit Ravi Shankar and so many other Hindustani maestros
Correct.
have influenced your
Correct.
innovations,
Correct.
especially the
Absolutely.
electronic tabla. Could you share some of the accolades and appreciation you've received from renowned musicians?
Phenomenal. I've received it from almost every musician. Sometimes most of them were oral, but a few have written letters which I have preserved. It so happened that after I launched the electronic tambura and then the tabla, I was covering both North Indian musicians as well as Carnatic musicians. So one of the musicians I was keen to meet was Pandit Ravi Shankar. And those days he used to be abroad most of the time. Very rarely was he in India. So whenever he came here, particularly to Bangalore for a concert or something, I would try my best to go and meet him. But then his disciples and his close friends would prevent anybody from reaching out to him, because they would say, Panditji is very busy, Panditji is resting, he has got a concert in the evening, so no, you can't. So I wasn't able to do it. And it so happened, and he was already familiar with my tanpura, he was using it also. But suddenly one day, I had gone out of station, and Panditji happened to come to Bangalore, and he asked his disciples to take him to my house.
One.
Okay, so he landed up at our gate. I was not there. And did Ramarao come in and talk to you? Or somebody came and said, Pandit Ravi Shankar is here, he wants to meet RAJ&RADHIKA, so he is here.
I met him.
So he went to the gate and met him, and she said, he came to, is so happy to use the tanpura, this and that. So is he here? And when she said he's out of station, he didn't get out of the car and come inside.
Okay.
But you can perhaps tell
Yeah.
what he said and what.
So he said, but I would like to meet him. And I have his products and I wanted something, etc. So I said, fine. I told him.
So when I tried to meet him, others prevented. But then he came to my doorstep.
So he said he asked him to meet me.
Yeah, so next time, nobody could stop me. So whenever I asked, whenever he happened to come to, he was staying in West End for a concert.
Okay.
Before that maybe, when he was in West End, I went to meet him. He wanted a tanpura, so I took a new tanpura for him and handed it over to him. All his disciples and senior disciples and other people known to him were there in his suite. And I went in, said, I brought the tanpura. He said, oh, come, sit down. I sat down. He was actually having a practice session in his hotel room. So when I took out the tanpura, he said, one of his disciples was tuning the traditional tanpura. So that is Pandit Ramarao, local musician. So he told Ramarao, you give that tanpura to him, let him tune it.
Test.
So he wanted to see whether I was musically inclined. Of course, he didn't know that I was a performing musician. So he wanted to test it out. So I took the tanpura and tuned it out. Then he tells me, "Oh, you have a very musical ear." Then I gave the tambura back to him. Then he said, "Now you tune the electronic tambura to that." I tuned it and gave it to him. So he was sort of convinced that I had sufficient qualities as a musician. And from that time, he used to interact with me. Once he called me even from London, saying, "Raj&RAD, I'm coming to Bangalore next month. Can you keep the tambura for me?"
This was very standard with all of them. So Balamurli would write a letter saying, "I'm coming by the Madras mail, so and so date. Keep 2 instruments ready for me. I will pick it up."
So at that time I would go and meet him. So I got familiar with him. That's what after these, the tabla, the next product I wanted to bring out was something to help tabla artists to practice. So just like the musicians need the tabla accompaniment for their riyas, whether you are singing or performing the sitar or sarod or whatever, you need the tabla sound, the theka.
Yeah.
So the same way, the tabla artists, when they want to practice their tabla playing for various tals, whether it's a rupak tal or a teen tal, ek tal, etc., they need a person to play a fixed tune of so many matras.
And that has to keep repeating.
It's a very monotonous.
Oh.
And mostly they would employ sarangi players.
Or a harmonium player.
And that, like a theka, counterpart of a theka is a lehra. Lehra. It's a tune which you play repeatedly for half an hour, 45 minutes. Very boring for the artist because you can't deviate. And if you deviate, it will be very small without removing the structure of that composition.
That same line has to be repeated. That guy will use that line, parts of that line where he's going up and down, that's that part of the tala.
So I developed a machine, electronic instrument, that would reproduce these pre-composed lehras conforming to different rags, different tals. The different rags is because Hindustani music is completely time dependent. Morning ragas, afternoon ragas, evening ragas, night ragas. We don't have that system in the Carnatic style. Hindustani musicians follow that very, very rigorously. So for an evening concert, the person will sing or perform only the evening. So Panditji was quite acquainted with my work and what I was doing. So I was interacting with him quite a lot. And so when I developed this lehra instrument, Sunad Mala, it so happened that Panditji had a concert in Bangalore. So I said, let me use him to launch this product.
Very kindly agreed.
Yeah, he very kindly agreed, said, no problem. He said, only thing is that function has to be in the same hotel where I am staying. So he was staying in the Hotel Ashok in Kumarakripa in Bangalore. So I organized for 2 hours of hall there, and the whole thing was organized under the aegis of a sabha called Percussive Art Center. Because again it was related to percussion. So again I knew all the musicians in Bangalore. The person who was running it was one Bangalore Venkatram, Mridangam and Khatama Vidwan. So he had created this organization, and so I said, related to percussion, why don't you have this? And Ravi Shankar has agreed to come. It's good for you, good for me, because it will be covered by the press also. So that's when I organized for him. He agreed to launch the product. So I had this product on the stage, and many dignitaries were there, audience was there. So he launched the product by pressing the button, and I had a young tabla artist who played with this as the accompaniment on the stage. So it was good for that RAJ&RAD who performed. Today he's a big artist. At that time he was a youngster, and Panditji appreciated his playing. Panditji appreciated the product that I had developed, and I had a videographer, photographer to capture the entire thing. Just when Panditji spoke, that guy went and switched off the video and for changing the batteries. So we lost 5 minutes of what Panditji said.
Oh, I see.
But actually what Panditji said was, He said, Raj&RADHIKA has made these wonderful instruments. It's so useful for all of us musicians, for carrying when we are traveling. And with a smile on his face, I hope next he doesn't come up with some product that performs a sitar like me. Then I'll be out of business.
Okay.
We missed that. But it was reported in one of the magazines, a 3-page article in the Week. And almost all media have covered whatever I have done. Week, Sunday, Hindu, Times of India, every paper in the country carried all that I have done at different times over a period of 10 to 15 years, because I kept coming up with newer and newer products. So when we talk about accolades, it's not only the accolades and reactions of these people, but also how it was received by the media, including Doordarshan.
Yeah, and the thing is that all of these just landed up. We never looked for it. We never asked anyone, can you cover it, can you do this? They would come and say, I want to feature you in this. Okay. And sometimes we were even suspicious. He wants to come to my factory and see what if he looks at the circuits, So we were that, naive. We didn't know anything. What do you do?
So, Pandit Ravi Shankar, I told you. Similarly, the reactions of Ustad Vilayat-Khan.
Oh yeah, he was
In a seminar in Bombay, to which it was a seminar organized especially for, I think, instruments, musical instruments. And they had a small segment in that seminar for electronic music. And we had entered the fray and we were creating ripples. And Ustad Vilayat-Khan pointed out to the rest of the artists sitting there saying, now you don't have any excuse. He said that in Hindi, not to practice. इन्होंने बना दिया आपको लिए रियाज करने के लिए. अभी तो आपको दिन रात बैठ के रियाज करना पड़ेगा so that you can elevate your standards of playing. See, that's the value he saw. And similarly, Amjad Ali Khan, I used to visit these people's houses. I would never have dreamt of it. And unfortunately, I was again, like she said, so I never bothered to take a single picture, photograph with any of these. Only that function where Pandit Ravi Shankar launched the product, press photographs were there, I had a photograph, that one single photograph with Pandit Ravi Shankar got, but none with either Bombay, Jayashree or Bombay Sisters or Radha Jayalakshmi, K.V. Narayan. So, I mean, no photographs. Even with Balapurlikar.
Yeah, why?
Because I was not after publicity. I was just, this is another thing I keep telling people. When you are passionate about something, you get so deeply immersed in it, you are not looking for even the financial returns on that. I just want to please that person. I just want to please people in this sector, domain. And so is the case.
Even the smallest teacher, someone says, no, I want it like this. He will sit and break his head and make that happen.
I think it was more the joy.
Absolutely.
Because you had the passion for this.
Yes. And I can never evaluate that satisfaction and joy. I can say 1 million rupees or maybe 10 million rupees. I can't evaluate that. But it was definitely, and that is what kept both of us going.
And it's what is keeping you both going still.
Absolutely.
As you can hear it right now in your voices itself.
It is.
Awesome.